Hello, my name is Cisilia Sintarahayuningtyas. My student number is 2020002002. This time I will explain the results of my analysis of clauses and sentences. The first slide, we start with the clause. The first clause we will discuss is the adjective clause. An example of this adjective clause I took from VOA News. British lawyer Karim Khan, who defended Ruto in the case, takes over as chief prosecutor. Here, I first separate the sentences that were intact into two. The first is British lawyer Karim Khan takes over as chief prosecutor, and the second is he defended Ruto in the case. He, in the second sentence, in bold, will be replaced with relative pronouns. So, these two sentences, when combined, will become British lawyer Karim Khan, who defended Ruto in the case, takes over as chief prosecutor. So, who here is what I said is a relative pronoun, and the adjective clause is who defended Ruto in the case. Then, the independent clause is British lawyer Karim Khan takes over as chief prosecutor, and the dependent clause is he defended Ruto in the case. In the second slide, it is a noun clause. I took an example from VOA News, which was her husband John said they felt their holiday cottage shake when helicopters flew over. When here is a conjunction, then helicopters is the subject and flew is the verb. Well, the noun clause is the bold type, when helicopters flew over. Okay, next we will discuss about adverb clause. An adverb clause is an adverb whose function is to provide information about a verb, adjective, or adverb in an independent clause. An example I took from VOA News is the moratorium was imposed after Democratic President Joe Biden on January 27th signed executive orders to fight climate change. The adverbial marker conjunction is after, provides information about the moratorium was imposed after Democratic President Joe Biden on 27 signed executive orders to fight climate change, which is an adverb clause is after Democratic President Joe Biden on January 27 signed executive orders to fight climate change. The next topics we will discuss is sentences. The first is simple sentence. I took the example from VOA News. Littleproud also said Australian officials would be meeting Wednesday with US officials to discuss the situation. This sentence contains one independent clause. There's Littleproud also said Australian officials would be meeting Wednesday with US officials to discuss the situation. And in the sentence, there's no conjunctions. The second is compound sentence. Here's I took the example of sentence from VOA News. Biden took office weeks later, and advocates said the measure never went into effect. The sentence contains two independent clauses. The first independent clause is Biden took office weeks later, and the second independent clause is advocates said the measure never went into effect. There's a conjunction, coordinating conjunction, and the third is complex sentence. The sentence I took from VOA News is Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service said Navalny violated the probation terms of his suspended sentence from a 2014 money laundering conviction, which he denounced as politically motivated. This sentence is contain one independent clause and one dependent clause. The independent clause is Russia's Federal Penitentiary Service said Navalny violated the probation terms of his suspended sentence from a 2014 money laundering conviction, and the dependent clause is which he denounced as politically motivated. There's contain conjunctions, subordinating conjunction, which. Next is compound complex sentence. Here's I took example from VOA News. The sentence is he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison in February on an embezzlement charge and was being held at the Pokrov Correctional Colony, which he described as a real concentration camp. This sentence is contain two independent clause and one dependent clause. The first independent clause is he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison in February on an embezzlement charge. And the second independent clause is was being held at the Pokrov Correctional Colony. And the dependent clause is which he described as a real concentration camp. There is two conjunction, coordinating conjunction and the subordinating conjunction which. The last slide, complex compound sentence. I took the example from VOA News. After months of keeping the pandemic under control, Taiwan is dealing with a surge in domestic infections, and the whole island is under a heightened state of alert, with people asked to stay at home and many venues shut. The sentence is contain one dependent clause and two independent clause. The dependent clause is after months of keeping the pandemic under control. The first independent clause is Taiwan is dealing with a surge in domestic infections. And the second independent clause is the whole island is under a heightened state of alert, with people asked to stay at home and many venues shut. There's two conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions after and coordinating conjunction and. The conclusion is that clauses and sentences build on each other. So clauses will be meaningful by being sentences, and sentences are formed by clauses. I'm so sorry if there are mistakes. Thank you and see you.